This is breaking news from the Las Vegas Review-Journal, sponsored by Michael Gaughan's South Point Hotel, Casino, and Spa.
So it's not going to happen. Not going to happen just yet. And we'll see how this team that we're putting together this summer supplements what we already have. And we're in the middle of it. We're talking to agents and talking to players, and you can't make commitments just yet. It's supposed to be July 1st. But we have a lot of people lined up that we're very, very interested in. So my prospects for Bournemouth are very good, and our prospects for our multi-club strategy is on track. We have one now, a League One club, and we're working in Belgium. We have some ideas about Spain, so we don't need a bunch. We need about 3 that we can send players to. They get their experience. They're playing all the time. Then they come back up to Bournemouth, and so we have a plan, but it's going to be evolving. Take a little while. Of course, this took a while too.
Is this Stanley Cup going to make an appearance at Bournemouth this year?
Probably not at Bournemouth. It's definitely going to make an appearance at Rock Creek Cattle Company, at Whitefish, Montana, Northern California, the Valley Club in Santa Barbara County. Yeah, it's going to get around. Kim Frank is actually putting the schedule together right now, and this is quite a schedule. And actually, the Stanley Cup is presently located at Rock Creek Cattle Company because the guys all took. We got them up there yesterday, and they all wanted to go up, and so we got them all up there, wives and guys, and they all arrived by about 5. Some of them got there early, and I don't know what they did last night, but I think they were up pretty late.
Bill, Mike Zeisler, NHL.com. Tomorrow, you're going to be in a car in one of the most famous 1.5 miles of street in the entire world. And, 6 years earlier, just a half a mile from there, it came from one of the, biggest tragedies that we've seen. Can you talk about the journey and the role that this organization has played from trying to heal an entire city from what happened at Mandalay Bay till tomorrow in that parade when people can just unleash their unbridled joy?
A very interesting question, and it ties into when we got the team and we started developing our plan. High priority for us was to be part of the community, embed ourselves in the community, have the community embed themselves with us. And the tragedy was terrible, but we changed everything after that happened. Our whole game presentation went away and got replanned with the Derek England speech and so on. And during that week, we were brand new. No one knew our hockey players. They were wandering around in their jerseys, and they were going to police stations and fire stations, the civic center. They went to hospitals, talked to people that had been injured, and it was just unbelievable. And I remember Joe Lombardo. They went to one of the police stations, and he was there, and he said, "What are you guys doing here? We got work to do." And they said, "We're just here to help, just here to be part of the community." And they became part of the community. And you saw what happened that first night, our first home game, and the speech, and we honored the first responders. And I just feel from that point on, we had done a serious job becoming part of the community, and we've been there ever since. I mean, we have lots of charities that we support. The VGK Foundation is a big contributor. The Folded Flag Foundation is a big contributor in this town, a charity I'm associated with. And by the way, thank you, Vinny Viola, for the $100,000 contribution to the Folded Flag Foundation based upon our victory. I'm enjoying that. I'm waiting for the check, Vinny, just in case he's listening. I know he's good for it. But then as we progressed, we stuck with it, and we really remained part of the community. And we made that run the first year, which was really amazing. And I remember after the 5th game, I felt so empty. Here we got beat in 5 by Washington, and we were up 1-0. And the next day, I just felt so empty. It had been taken from us. And so we had a big party. We had a fan fest downtown. Boy, 20,000 people, 25,000 people go to a fan fest for a team that lost. And I knew that we'd done our job. And we've been with the community ever since. We're out in front of T-Mobile for Game 7. The estimate is 11,000 people on the plaza, 19,000 plus in the arena. Makes me proud. Makes me proud of what we've accomplished here. And I'm proud to be a member of this community, and I'm really proud of our players. I'm proud of George and Kelly. It's just starting to sink in that we actually won the Stanley Cup. I didn't get up this morning until 10:15. First good night's sleep. It was great.
Ken Boelke, Cinnamon, Vegas. Before this season started, you said you wanted to be more vocal to make sure Cup and 6 happened. How did that materialize?
Well, I wanted to be a little bit more involved in just the decision-making process and make sure I got involved earlier. As George said and Kelly said, they involved me in the decisions. Sometimes I was getting involved a little bit too late. And I didn't want that to happen this year. I really wanted to know the game plan from day one. I had always been sitting in with the pro scout meetings and listening to the plans and trying to understand, as we go through every team and every player that's possibly available, who is going to fit on our team. And early on, back before we even had a team, the pro and amateur scouts came in and they had, I think, 8 criteria what they look for: hockey sense, speed, all kinds of things like that. And I told them at that time, said there's number 1 criteria, character. If we build a team with character that they depend on each other, and you think about it as I think about a platoon, and everyone's working with each other, we'll be successful. And so I just got to, I wouldn't say I didn't get involved by, okay, now don't do this, don't do that. I just had a little more input and a little more involvement. And I believe it helped. I didn't get any pushback. But it wasn't that significant. I can tell you, those guys make the decisions.
Jesse Granger with The Athletic. Just first, real quick, what do you imagine the party up in Montana is like? What are those guys doing right now?
Well, they went up there in 4 different airplanes, and the first plane arrived around 11, and it was mainly golfers. And I'm not sure all the wives were on that plane. I think they were on a second plane. So they hit the golf course. Then they got done with that, they started ATVing. I didn't let them go shooting because they were already had a few drinks, so that normally is so they may have had some shots, but they weren't shooting. And they finally settled up for dinner around 8:30 down by, we have it called The Last Shot. It's a tent we have down by the golf shop. And I got a couple pictures. I think they were sometime later because they were in the bar. So what time was that? And they had poker set up for them. They wanted to play poker and had some dealers in there. If it's like the bonding trip in October, they saw the sun come up. And then they went out and they played more golf. And now their first group's coming back. I'm sure they had a good time. Petro called me, or actually called Kim Frank, and I called him back because he said, well, some of the guys would like to go to Rock Creek just for a day. I said, really? Just go up there for a day? Oh, yeah, we want to go to Rock Creek. I said, well, okay, we'll get a list and let me know if you really want to go, and I'll see if I can arrange something. And he called back about 3 minutes later. He was at Marty's house. They're having a party. He said, well, we all want to go, and we want to bring our wives. so anyway, we got it arranged for them. Got them squared away.
And then, secondly, we've talked a lot about your prognostications. I think maybe none bigger than this city as a sports town. And 6 years later, we have the Raiders, and the Super Bowl is going to be here. I'm curious, when you look back to before you got the team here, what do you think you saw in Las Vegas that maybe everybody else didn't at the time?
Well, I think everyone was spooked by gambling, but that sort of went away over time, and Gary Bettman led the way on that. But when we did our research, and I was a skeptic initially before we started our ticket drives and so on, and I was negotiating with the commissioner about franchise fee, and I started at I think $150, and he started at $600, and I went to $200, and he went to $595, that kind of thing. So we settled on $500, And I talked to other people who were involved and said, "What do you think?" I said, "It's really expensive for a hockey franchise." And to a person, they said, "There are only 124 major league franchises in America," or something like that. This will be one of them. And so we kind of we ponied up. We paid the money, and as part of that process, though, we did our own research, and our research showed us that back then, when Vegas had 1,950,000, 2 million people, we had 140 to 150,000 avid hockey fans from somewhere else, and mainly males, some females, but mainly males. Said, okay, if I've got 140,000, that means I've really got 280 because they're married, and then I've got kids, so maybe it's 400. And we kept on doing our research, and we did that ticket drive. And amazingly enough, within about 30 days, we had 11 or 12,000 season ticket deposits. The people put in escrow 15% of a season ticket pass. We didn't have a team, we didn't have a name, we didn't have an arena. That's when I knew we had it. And I thought, well, other people are going to follow. They're bound to follow because there's just too much going on here. And the other thing you have to remember is what are the 42 or 43 million visitors that come to Las Vegas. Bournemouth, for example, has 8 million visitors that go to Bournemouth. Well, we're not tapping into those 8 million. And we really haven't tapped into the 43 million other than to sell them gear, because I don't want them in the arena. I want our fans in the arena. I don't want to see those other jerseys. It bugs me. I don't know if you noticed, but we have a system that no more than 4 fans can sit in a row together, and then there must be a row separating those fans, and the overlapping fan can only be offline one seat with 3 other guys. I love them. They pay a lot of money, but I don't want them in my arena.
Danny Webster, Las Vegas Sun. Bill, 2 questions for me. First one, there's some reports out there that Vegas may host a draft next year. Has there been any conversations as far as that goes, and is there any progress on that?
We're working on it. We've had some good feedback. I'll let the NHL kind of handle that announcement.
Second one for me, when the team first started,
which would be really fun if we had it. It'd be really fun.
The second question for me, when the team first started, obviously the whole thing of having 23 captains on the roster and just the overall camaraderie of that group, to see what Mark Stone went through with 2 back surgeries in less than a year, has the playoffs that he did, his first to hoist the cup, just what has he meant to this franchise since you all decided to name him captain?
You know, I'm really proud of Stoney and what he's gone through. We started out the first few years with everyone's a captain, and we felt like that was the way to have the room bond, and we wanted to make sure that when we picked a captain, he was the true leader, he had the respect of the team, and Stoney does that. He's quiet strength. There's so much inside that man and his leadership qualities. Doesn't say a lot. He just performs, and when he says something, it's really it's significant. So he's been the perfect captain, and 2 back operations. They were, some people had said, well, he's just out now, and he's not really out. But he was out, and he managed to come back for the playoffs, just barely. But he's skating great, and he feels good. And in the playoffs, a couple of guys tried to take him out and make his life miserable, and he was tough. He got through it, so he leads by example. So in my mind, he's the perfect captain. When we were making a coaching change a couple of years ago, I invited a couple of guys over, and he was one of them, just to talk about what they felt about going forward and what we should be thinking about. And they helped me with the decision we made, the previous situation, which I communicated to George and Kelly, and they were on board. So he's just but the whole team, if you know it, the team is full of leaders, it's full of comradeship. Our team this year was back to where we were kind of year one. Everyone playing together, everyone being together. And we had some fits and starts, and maybe all the trades we made weren't perfect and the ins and outs, but it was all done with the process in mind of we have a really good team. we need an elite forward, we need an elite centerman, and we need an elite D-man if we're going to ever win the Cup. And if you notice, that's what we did: elite forward, elite D-man, elite centerman, and Eichel was the last piece of the puzzle. So I feel like we've got a great team. They're not entitled. They play together, and they have great leadership in Mark Stone.
Do two more, Steve and Ed.
Bill, hi. Steve Karp with the Sporting Tribune. Lost in your predictions from 7-8 years ago was the one you told me about youth hockey in this community, how you were going to make sure that any kid who wanted to play hockey in Southern Nevada would get that opportunity. And we've seen youth hockey just grow tremendously during this time. Now that the team has won the Stanley Cup, does the process get accelerated in trying to build a couple more rinks? I'm thinking one maybe down in Southern Highlands, Seven Hills area, one maybe up in the Centennial area, to go with the sheets we already have here and at Lifeguard and at Sobey.
Yeah, so that is very important. When I got here, I think there were 500 kids playing hockey, mainly young guys. Now we have over 5,000, maybe it's 5,500 now playing hockey. Our rinks are packed. So the two target areas, one is in Henderson over by the airport, which kind of brings in Southern Highlands and brings in the western part of Henderson. And then the other one would be a little bit further north. So Centennial Hills is an idea. There's some good park areas up that are owned by the city that if we got some help, we could try and get 4 more sheets of ice over the next several years. The complicated part is that our facility here, of course, we have the first team, and they practice here, and we have sell-out ice time. We have a restaurant. The restaurant's successful, and over in Henderson is Silver Knights, and we had a lot of help from Henderson to build that arena and those 2 sheets of ice, and that one has really worked out. So we just have to make sure we have enough infrastructure support, either from the city or cities, to support that execution of the plan, and then we'll go in and we'll manage it and we'll run it, and we'll obviously raise money for it. But we're gonna need help because we won't have that built-in infrastructure that will go in there and be part of that facility to really help support it. And this facility here with our team store and so on, it's a good moneymaker. We do great. We do great here, and so is our facility over in Henderson, which is now Credit One, or Credit First, I think, or Credit Alliance. We changed the name.
Because I just figured with the exposure the team has had from winning the Cup, you're going to have kids at the parade tomorrow and beyond that are going to want to now play. They're going to beg their parents, but
totally,
they may not have a place to skate.
So we need more facilities, and the town can support it. We just have to have the right infrastructure that can support what it costs to run a facility like that. That's our big hang-up.
Ed Graney, Review Journal. Hey, Bill. To stay on the theme of teams coming, the week that was, as you win the Cup and the A's are probably coming now, you don't seem surprised at all these teams coming here. Can you define that in terms of why you're not surprised? And also, knowing markets as you do, if the NBA would come as also, how do you think this market stands up to having what would be the 4 major teams?
I believe the NBA is coming here, and I believe one of their issues is going to be an arena. We're in a kind of tough economic environment now, so there's another arena being built that's going to be, you're going to spend $750 million on. Does it make sense, or do we help the NBA and get involved with them, and we bring them to T-Mobile and maybe have a different ownership structure of T-Mobile so that our group here would be involved in that ownership group. So we're being very, after my experience with the NHL, I'm very cognizant of not getting ahead of myself, not saying anything about who I've talked to or what I've done, and because as most of you know, I went to West Point. I was a plebe. You get beat up pretty bad as a plebe, and I haven't been talked to as a plebe since Gary Bettman called me early on in the franchise and said, and as we said, reamed me for saying several things. And so I am very, very careful about saying anything about the NBA. because I don't need another conversation like that.
You don't seem surprised these teams are coming.
No, not surprised at all. The town can support it. You might have more visitors. The Raiders get a lot of visiting fans, and that's part of what they do. And they're bringing a lot of their own fans from California. So it's a multi-club environment in effect in terms of teams going there, and they're only 16 or 18 games a year. Baseball's gonna be tougher. A lot of games, and they're going to have to. But I guess they're getting some supporting money from the state, which is that leads me to believe that we should get some help on a couple first sheets of ice. Why not? I mean, really, we're helping the community. So that's my pitch on getting capital contributions.
Thank you, Bill.
Okay, great. Thanks, everybody. Great to see you.
One more prediction for hockey.
We're not done. I'll say that we're not done. And I told Carly when we signed him up to an 8-year deal that I expect 3 Stanley Cups during his contract. And I was with him on the ice when we got our picture taken. I looked over at him and I said, "Okay, you got one." Remember what I said. But I'm not predicting a time.
No.
Not doing that again. Because I will say, I think the guys all remember the Cup in 6. We never said one thing all year. Period. Nothing was said.
You did say after year 2 that you wanted to start a dynasty, so I guess now
That's what I want to do. It's happened before in other teams.
The other night, Bill, when I asked you, you had another, in your words, you said, "Give me a couple of days to let this sink in. I'll have another asinine prediction." So a couple months.
You've been watching breaking news from the Las Vegas Review-Journal, sponsored by Michael Gaughan's South Point Hotel, Casino, and Spa.